We say we want to be ourselves, but if we are being honest, we only want to be ourselves if it doesn't get anyone upset, it doesn't get anyone disappointed or uncomfortable. We want to talk honestly, just not if it creates tension. We want to follow what feels right inside, just not if someone we care about doesn't understand. We want to grow, just not if it changes things. And that's where a lot of us get stuck because becoming ourselves sounds simple, but sometimes it's a bit disruptive, not necessarily to your life, but to the version of your life that you have become used to the relationships that you have learned to navigate, to the roles that you have learned to play. But if we truly become ourselves, things will change. If you have always said yes, you might start saying no. If you have always stayed quiet, you might start speaking up. If you have always shaped your life around trying not to disappoint others, you might start making decisions that others may not agree with. And that's where things get uncomfortable because the people around us have become used to a certain version of us. And when we start behaving differently, they might not react in a very positive way. And we have become used to that version of ourselves too. As we grow up, we learned who we are supposed to be. We learned what gets approval, what keeps the peace. And over time, those things became familiar. And familiar always feels safer than authentic. That's why being ourselves feels confusing to many of us because one part of us wants it, but then the other part is afraid that it might change things. But being ourselves sometimes isn't about gaining something. It's more about actually losing something, losing the old identities that don't fit anymore, losing the old habits that are not serving us anymore, losing the stories that we have been telling about ourselves that don't make sense anymore. We are not that person anymore. But because we have lived with those things for a long time, they have become a way that we understand ourselves. And even if they have been limiting us for such a long time, still there is this grief that comes with letting them go. And maybe that's why a lot of people stay where they are because it is familiar, it's predictable, and it is comfortable enough. Why they should change anything? But then avoiding the discomfort of becoming ourselves doesn't necessarily remove all the discomfort from our lives. It just changes its shape. We avoid disappointing others, but then we end up disappointing ourselves. We avoid the conflict to keep the peace, but then we live in resentment. We avoid the uncertainty that being ourselves brings, but then life doesn't feel quite right. And that feeling kind of follows us. Maybe not like a life crisis, but more like a subtle feeling. We feel like we are not quite being ourselves. There is this distance between who we are and who we allow ourselves to be. So maybe the question isn't what if things change if I become myself? The question is what is the cost of staying the same? Because sometimes we are so focused on what we might lose that we never stop to think what we are already losing, the opportunities that we don't take, when we want to say something and we don't say, the dreams that we keep postponing, and the parts of us that we push aside all the time. And we do all of that because staying the same feels safer. But sometimes familiar and safe aren't the same thing. And that's exactly why it is worth paying attention to that part of us that is afraid. That doesn't mean that we let it decide for us. We just, it just might show you what you have been protecting and what you have been sacrificing to protect it. So it is really worth to pay attention to that part of us